what if we give you a sensor that attaches to our forms? It's completely reusable, by the way, that tells you the concrete is fully cured in 22 days. You can move much faster throughout the job site. There are, consequences to not being fully prepared for a pour.
In the South, we call that a big dadgum mess. Right?
It is definitely a big dadgum mess.
That's right. Yeah. Joe, dude, thanks for joining us, man. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, can you tell us who you are, what you do? Let's start there.
So my name's Joe Purtle. I COO for Doka, but been in the construction industry for almost 25 years now. Background is in mechanical engineering. Never thought I would end up in construction, but here we are. A little bit of my career history. I spent 15 years with Hilti, and I've been in the forming and shoring industry for the last 10 years with some of Doka's largest competitors here in the States and globally. Well, Doka is a global leader in the forming and shoring industry. Family-owned company out of Austria. With fairly large business here in the U.S. The U.S. is their largest in terms of revenue business. And our primary service is forming and shoring solutions. But, as the construction industry evolves, Doka is going to have to evolve too into things like digital solutions, BIM, and even, future technologies, current and future technologies such as AI. So at the core of who Doka is forming and shoring, now scaffolding, and, Doka is looking to evolve into the construction environment as, many of our clients and contractors are as well.
You laugh at me, but when I did a short stint in concrete, we built all our forms. Like I had no idea that, I guess I knew there were metal forms, different things, but we certainly weren't buying them where we were at. And, working in the kind of the industrial sector that was around Middle Georgia. So everything was just, 2x4s and plywood. And then I kind of discovered, Doka has the formwork, but then also because of using Tekla structures, like Doka was importing a lot of their shapes and forms into Tekla.
Yes. And
like you can model them. So that was a whole new thing. And so built on top of that, now you can do not only formwork, but you can model scaffolding now too. Like that's a whole thing that's coming into BIM because you can't always just go out there and just throw scaffolding up. Right, from what you have, like you can actually pre-plan it with BIM.
That's exactly right. That speaks to the evolution of the industry, right? You talk about, you used to just job build forms with, lumber that you purchased, what's 2x4s, plywood, snap ties, whatever it is, you just built it and made it work. It's very labor intensive.
Yep.
Well, our industry, as time goes along, the entire construction industry, whether it's concrete contractors, general contractors, forming and shoring, labor is, becoming a larger and larger challenge for all of us. So we've got to get better at what we do. One initial step was modular formwork. Like you said, the panels, wall panels, shoring panels, whatever it may be, but a modular, more progressive technique in forming. You gain a ton of productivity and a ton of efficiency. And then, you fast forward to things like BIM now, Tekla models, Revit models, you can, model 3D solutions. And not only that, you can go into a job site that you need, significant access to, maybe an industrial job site. You need a lot of scaffolding access. You can scan the job site and actually have the BIM models created for you based off of the scan of the space. So there's just a lot of advancement in technology, not only in construction, but in the forming and shoring industry, which, we're utilizing to help make our clients better at what they do.
One of the things I really like about this topic is the construction-based BIM that it really drives us into talking about. Because, when I think about what I want at the end of, using the forms, like I want concrete, I want a wall, I want what I'm forming in, but these forms have volume. and you've got to think through the use case. And we have preached a lot how it's that ounce of planning equals a pound of cure, like you're going to, or ounce of prevention. You're trying to get in the front side and really get into the constructability details. But I don't know that everybody really thinks about that when it comes to something like formwork. It's just kind of like, yeah, we need concrete wall and we do BIM, and the BIM has a wall.
Yep.
How to get there and what's going to have to happen before that. So y'all are getting into that more.
Absolutely. And more people are thinking about it. You're right, not everybody thinks about it. But I would say the more complex the structure is, or the more importance the schedule has on the construction cycle, the more people think about it, right? Because placement of concrete drives the schedule on many of our like high-rise type buildings or bridge construction or things like this. Placement of concrete is completely dependent on your forming techniques. So more and more people are starting to realize this and really utilizing companies like Doka as more of an upfront partner versus a vendor or supplier that they just call and say, hey, we need this. The sooner we can get involved, the more we can impact the design of not only the formwork layout, but we might even be able to impact things like their concrete mix through digital solutions and concrete design and cycling. That says, hey, listen, did you think about cycling your formwork this way? You're going to avoid this barrier or this barrier, and in the end, it's going to allow you to stay closer to your original schedule.
I'll ask a dumb one. The cycling of formwork. Describe that.
Yeah.
What's that?
What is cycling of formwork?
So cycling the formwork is just taking your forms from pour to pour.
Yeah.
So, contractor may say, hey, I want to start at the north end and work my way south with this wall or this slab. And for whatever reason, we may say, listen, have you considered starting at the south end and moving north? And these are the reasons why. So, we understand how our material cycles. We understand the complexity of cycling the material, the difficulty of getting the material from floor to floor or from position to position in the building. And if you partner with us early enough, we can help keep you on schedule.
That's an interesting point. So as far as the early stage development of what is needed, are you guys relying on laser scanning a lot, for your internal processes to help clients determine hey, yeah, here's what you're going to need here, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I would say it's more prevalent in the scaffolding side of things.
Interesting. Okay.
Than say new construction. Because in the scaffolding side, usually you're working around an existing structure on the industrial side from an access solution. But we're finding more and more ways to utilize, things like scanning technology.
I say that's interesting from the scaffolding side of things. Just as another use case for scanning that I didn't even realize was being used. So that's nuts, man.
That was one of the developments of the year in Tekla was a whole plugin for scaffolding.
Yep.
And it was just wow, I guess that must have been a really big issue that somebody wanted to solve for, to go that all in on a tool, a plugin.
Yep, for sure. For sure. Anything that you can gain productivity, efficiency, and that's going to eventually help with, potential labor shortages, people tend to get all in.
Because these are modular, you want to reuse. So you're thinking through new things like cycling. I'm not going to buy formwork for an entire building and just go, well, everything's here. We'll form the whole building, pour the whole building. You are cycling through. You are reusing. You need to consider things I know nobody ever gets a form stuck ever, right? The form always comes out easily.
Well, yeah, sure. yeah. So that's one of the things that can happen. Not to say that if you don't know what you're doing, but if you're underprepared, you can pour yourself into a situation where you've got a trap form.
Yeah.
And once you've got a trap form, you're in a situation where you're going to stop renting that form and end up buying it, or you're going to have to come back and get it later some way through, some sort of demo, there are, consequences to not being fully prepared for a pour.
In the South, we call that a big dadgum mess. Right?
It's definitely a big dadgum mess.
That's right.
Yeah. And from a forming and shoring supplier, that probably 70% of our business is rental. we really want to keep those type of things from happening for our clients. And when they do happen, we do our best to make it as painless as possible, but it's still a big dadgum mess that has to be dealt with.
Yeah.
It's painless for them and painless for y'all too, because I'm sure you've been asked to come out and figure out how to get the form off of there.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Golly. Well, that also kind of answers my other question, was the rental or purchasing option of this. I wasn't really sure how people go at it, but I guess if you're a concrete company, then it makes some sense to go out and purchase some of these forms and just have them. Like, are they just like standard sizes that you guys are creating? Because I'm sorry, I'm asking stupid questions here, but
most of the panels are relatively standard across all of the forming and shoring suppliers, but they're not interchangeable. So most of our clients own a certain amount of forming and shoring equipment. Usually it's not enough, for example, to do a high-rise building or something like that. There are a few that do. And then there are a handful, some of the largest in the country, that make a strategic business decision to not own any forming and shoring. That are going to rent entirely. And sometimes the size of the job and the durations of the job warrant purchasing versus rental. If your rental is, say, 36 months long, a long duration rental job for whatever reason, you might look at what it would cost to purchase that gear, because you're going to own it by the end of the rental period anyway. So there are a lot of factors that go into the purchase versus rental decision, but probably 70% of our business is rental.
And sustainability is a big aspect of what you guys do, right? Like, if you're recycling forms, like there has to be a massive sustainability play in Doka for you guys. So, like, are you seeing advantages, or are you able to approach more people and say, hey, we can help you meet your sustainability goals based off of just recycling this material? So
it's less to do with recycling of material. Yes, that's becoming more and more of what we do. So sustainability, let's start here. Sustainability is a massive topic.
Oh yeah, of course.
It's becoming definitely a global topic, a topic that construction companies are starting to take serious, and concrete contractors have to take serious, because the production of concrete creates tons of carbon emissions. So there's a couple of things that Doka is doing, and they're researching materials that are fully recyclable. Things like the replaceable faces of our formwork. We would like to get to a point where that becomes fully recyclable and sustainable. We're also doing things through, say, pressure and temperature sensors that help optimize the curing process of the concrete. So this is part of our digital solution portfolio. So we have sensors that during the pouring process measure temperature and pressure, and by measuring temperature and pressure, you can optimize the curing time. So there's no guessing about when your concrete's cured. You know exactly when it's cured. That does a couple of things. It allows you to cycle the material faster, which speeds up the schedule, keeps the contractor on schedule, keeps the owner happy. But in some cases, we can actually occasionally alter the concrete mix. And when we can alter the concrete mix, then we can have a real big impact on the carbon emissions that concrete is producing. So there's a lot of exciting things from the digital solutions. We started the interview off with who Doka is. Well, Doka is a forming and shoring company that's evolving to be much more than that. Other things that pressure and load sensors do is they allow us to pour concrete at the optimum speed. If you're pouring a column and you pour a column too fast, what happens? Blows out. Concrete's going to come out the bottom. So if you optimize the pouring speed, you're doing a couple of things. You're guaranteeing a quality product. You're improving safety, because anytime a form busts, there's a safety element there. And ultimately, you're increasing productivity of the client, thus, getting the forms to the next place. So, there's a lot of exciting stuff happening around digital solutions that help with sustainability, more than just materials that we offer. We want to have an impact on the actual concrete when we can.
That's it. I think IoT, like the Internet of Things, like you're putting sensors and different things now in position to be able to read back. So these things are feeding back to you as you're doing the process, so that you've got something more intelligent than just being able to do things that are observable, like easily observable.
That excites me, is like this idea of having these sensors within your concrete and then having a dashboard of sorts where you can just look at it and be like, yeah, this is done, this is ready to go. Like that's pretty sick that we're at that point now.
Yeah, absolutely. The more traditional methods, a full concrete cure 28 days or something like that. You do destructive testing just to prove that the concrete's at 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 PSI, whatever it may be. But what if we give you a sensor that attaches to our forms? It's completely reusable, by the way. You can cycle it with the forms that tells you the concrete is fully cured in 22 days. And, you can move much faster throughout the job site.
So you can cycle the sensors too?
Yes. So our sensors are reusable.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I've seen some other solutions out there where you just chuck them in essentially or tie them to the rebar and, pour them in there, and that's how they read it. But
which, of course, on a smaller scale, but that speaks to sustainability as well, is that we try to make as much as we can reusable.
Yeah, I'm just really curious about that. Can you explain how the sensor attaches and stuff? Like, do you know how that all kind of works together? Because how the heck does it?
So
reusable?
Usually it's attaching to the form.
Right.
And then it communicates wirelessly to a cell phone app, an iPad app, or something like that, and it can cycle with the form. So, yeah.
That's really cool, dude.
Thinking through, like, if you can adjust or optimize cure times on a high rise. I mean, this has to be, fairly common practice. The complex builders that are building high rises are looking at this. But if you could improve schedule on cure time by like a day or two, I got to think that on a high rise, this is making a gigantic impact on the end goal of the schedule.
Oh, absolutely. If you cut a day, off of the cycle on a high-rise building, in the end, you're probably saving 3 to 6 weeks, depending on how big the building is.
Which is massive. Yeah. Well, when you talk about destructive testing, like your brakes, right? You get you're pouring a cylinder, right? And then that's going through
compressed.
A brake. Yep. Right. So, we deal with that in steel. You want to make sure that things have the integrity to be able to put the steel load on top of them. But that's still kind of I guess it's a guess to a certain extent, whether it's going to be ready or not, and whether that mix was just right.
It feels like a lick your fingers, stick it in the air, and see which way the wind's blowing.
It's a much less scientific way of reading out what you actually have.
Yeah. So what the compressive test can tell you is whether or not the concrete is of strength. It'll tell you if it's trending the way you want it to trend, so that you can strip the forms and cycle the way you plan to do it. What sensors do is they give you an exact in-the-moment reading that tells you that you're ahead of schedule or behind schedule. Generally, you're ahead of schedule because the traditional techniques are fairly conservative. And it's real data versus, we're going to get there, we're fine. It's real data. And then based off of that data, you can optimize the mix, if you want, to hit the schedule that you want and reduce concrete carbon emissions through the production of the concrete. So this is where, companies, company like Lithgow, where sustainability is a really important piece of their business, and they're really interested in possibly reducing the carbon emissions to the production of the concrete that goes into their job sites. So these are conversations that some of the more progressive companies are ready to have, which maybe 5 years ago they weren't.
I was going to drop that in as a little breadcrumb. This is one of the reasons Tyler was probably asking about the rent versus buy. Is we had Rob Coakley from Lithgow on, and Lithgow's a big rental advocate.
Rob's whole job. Any formwork.
Yeah, right. So
I've met Rob a couple of times.
So, and he had some really interesting points to make about that. So that was kind of, I think, where that got chucked in. I want to downshift a little bit and go over to a little different topic with you.
Sure.
But we talked in the pre-call about prefabrication of formwork, and we talked about how you guys do that and like parking decks.
Yep.
And so what are you doing there?
Yeah. So, I mean, the pre-assembly or prefabrication of more complex forms is something we do in a lot of different applications. Cast in place parking garages being a big one. Because if you think about a cast in place parking garage, you have a slab, maybe a 20-foot span that ties into two beams. And you got to figure out how to form those beams. So one of the services we offer, again, this helps with, the ever-challenging situation around labor shortage and things like this from our clients, is we can do the prefabrication of those beam forms in our yard and ship them complete beam forms that are ready to be, hoisted and shored into place, so that they can just tie the beam form in with the slab form instead of building all of that stuff on site. So just about every location, we have pre-assembly teams that are working off of a set of fabrication drawings that our engineering department has supplied, and led by carpenter leads. And depending on depending on the amount of work that's in each location, we'll have anywhere from 1 to 5 crews building various forms. So that's one example. Another example is if you think about maybe an aquarium or kind of a battery park in New York City right now that's going to have a lot of like radiused walls and curved walls and things like this. We have CNC machines that allow us to sort of cut and form those curves ahead of time, and we can ship sizable, full wall units that have the curves built into the form, so that they get an exact curve, an exact finish as deemed necessary by the architect, the structural engineer, and those involved. So it just, that's one piece of labor and expertise that we are able to help the client with if they need it. It's not always requested. Sometimes they have the labor and the space to build these things on site. They're certainly capable. That's what they do. But it's definitely a value add that at Doka we offer to the client.
I mean, you could show up and already have the radiused wall mapped out, plop it down, you're ready to go. I mean, come on.
Yeah, something like that. Usually the client doesn't have the expertise to do, or the equipment mainly to do it. If you think about an aquarium or something like this, it's going to have just some really odd radiuses that tie together in a concrete structure. It requires a fairly intense, computer automated CNC solution that then gets built out in one of our yards.
Yeah, traditionally, you'd be framing that out of wood?
In this situation, the substructure would be wood, the face would be wood.
Okay.
But if you think about kind of a big box out that's got ribs cut into it that are curved, that then we form, we put the plywood over to create that radiused form.
See, I mean, you do it in a shop still in a controlled environment.
Very controlled environment.
It's easy to ship out to site and you're ready to go. That's interesting though. But I mean, having the machinery back it up, that's kind of the beauty of it. And then you also have the model to help identify your radius and stuff. Dude, architects rejoice. They actually get their vision complete at that point too. Because that's leaving that up to a field crew. It's
pretty precise. Okay, oftentimes it was something like this. The architect will actually tell us what plywood we have to put on the outside of the form. So, they want a certain look, they want a certain finish, and it's our job to help the client to provide that.
That's some pretty highly specific stuff. I mean, that is why we're building more complex things now. Yeah. Like we're starting to bring some of these tools to bear.
Because we can.
Yeah.
Right?
Like that's available now. I can do that now.
Yeah. If you've been on a job site in a job site trailer, more times than not, you've heard the concrete contractor, the general contractor sort of sigh and maybe complain about what the architect has dreamt up or the structural engineer has dreamt up. but we continue to deliver. So they're going to keep pushing the bar, and we're going to continue to deliver, and we're going to end up with some pretty cool structures out there made out of concrete.
You gripe about it until you go out and you look at it.
Later.
And you're like,
Yeah.
man, that's cool.
That's pretty cool.
When you can point up at something and say, yeah, we had something to do with that, it's pretty cool.
We were talking about this, actually, Tyler Cook and I, our editor, we were talking before the show about how in construction, there's kind of this brotherhood and griping about what we have to do. Like you're the whole way, you're like, God, you're frustrated and you're griping and complaining. And then you get to the end of it and you're like, my job's so cool. That's so cool that I got.
You see that? I did that.
It's
Me.
the frustration. They like that frustration's like the trial by fire. And then you're like, when you break through that and then the thing is out there in the field and you look at it, you're like, man, that's cool. Because it was not easy and it was frustrating.
Yeah.
So
That's about right.
That's good stuff, man.
So just to type the PreAssembly thing, it's a service that we offer every day. It's not always so complex. Sometimes it's fairly simple beams or wall units, but it's just one more thing that helps the client, do their job a little better, especially if they're facing challenges around labor shortage.
I would imagine that cycling the formwork in something like a parking structure, like that, this is an engineered solution. You've got an engineering department that's sitting down and thinking through how are we going to form it, how are we going to cycle it, and then you're able to bring that to bear and actually fabricate what you need to do it.
Yep.
So that's a very full circle thing that you're doing there.
Yeah, in a parking structure, it's more complex than others.
Sure.
Because many times, especially if bumper walls are already poured and things like this, you can't just fly a beam form out the building, which means that the ramp that goes to the next level has to already be poured so that you can put a beam form on some sort of casters and push it to the next floor. So it's just thinking through things like this that not all of our clients have done. If it's the first time they've built a cast-in-place parking structure, you just walk through the cycling process. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? These beam forms actually have to cycle through the building and up the ramp. They can't go out. Maybe you're not allowed to fly, a 20-foot long beam out the building because of traffic. So it's just helping them think through the best way to basically get the structure built.
What are you guys modeling everything? Like what are you doing with BIM?
So we're not split, but heavily engaged in both Revit and Tekla, right? So, and then we have the ability to 3D print our solutions. We have the ability to model just about any formwork solution. Sort of the next phase is partnering with the concrete contractor, who's partnering with the general contractor, who's partnering with the structural engineer and architect, and getting everybody into the same BIM model, where if we're all working from the same BIM model, we can then use future technologies such as AI that says, here's the structure, here are all your structural elements, here's all of your concrete walls, slabs, and floors. Here's our pool of formwork models that we have to pull from. What's the most efficient forming and shoring design to build this structure? Not there yet. Be a little bit before we are there, but there are active conversations among our company, some BIM consultants, and even some of the contractors, maybe one of which you mentioned was here a few weeks ago.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. That's one of those areas in BIM, I feel like we've still got a lot of growth. And it's going to be the next generation of BIM where we're all working from that same model. I feel like that's going to, like right now, that's probably one of the biggest holdups that we have as an industry is the fact that we have a structural model, we have an architectural model, and then we have, maybe a formwork model, or all these different things, and they're spread out all over the place. But what you're talking about is an integrated central place where this is all housed.
Yep.
Right.
And they communicate.
Yeah. So with AI,
Yep.
moving into that too, what are you guys doing there to enhance the process.
So AI
with that in mind.
AI is such an interesting topic.
Yeah.
So there's the potential to use AI to streamline the design process that we just talked about.
Yeah.
Take a structure and have AI suggest a design based off of the Tekla blocks or Revit blocks that are available. So there's that piece of AI. And then there's the piece of AI that allows us to be more efficient and effective in our jobs every day. This is something that we as a company are looking at just to, become more efficient in our daily task. And if we become more efficient internally, it's going to make us better at serving the client. So it's not a new topic. It's an ever-evolving topic. It just so happens that I'm reading a book called Co-Intelligence on AI right now. And there's an interesting quote in the book that says, the AI that you're using today is the worst AI you'll ever use, right? Because it's evolving so fast. So this is definitely something we're doing to try to get better. And if there are so many different things that AI can do for us that we haven't even thought about yet. BIM being a big one. What you described, where we want BIM to go versus where BIM is, isn't really BIM, right? It's where BIM is today is a lot of people that have the ability to create 3D models. And if those 3D models aren't actually communicating together and collaborating from trade to trade, then we're not actually utilizing BIM the way it's intended. It's kind of a Hollywood BIM. There are companies out there that produce a 3D image and they say, well, there's your BIM. I'm like, no, that's not BIM. That's AutoCAD in 3D. Until you get a Tekla block or a Revit block that then can communicate with a real BIM model, you're not utilizing the technology as it was originally intended many, many years ago. We're getting closer, but it's really going to take a pull from a major construction manager, major general contractor, developer, owner, that sort of forces the industry to go that way.
Yeah, we have lovingly called that the dog pile method of BIM.
Yeah.
Where, all of the sub-trades are just firewalled from one another, and then you throw them all in a model and do your best to just sort the spaghetti out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an interesting thought with formwork too, because, I've got formwork in a model and it's got a use case and it's a constructability use case. But the thing that's actually in the building at the end, the formwork gets broken down, taken away, and you never see it again, right? So there's a process of I want to add that in and have that there. And I've got this construction-based model, but will the architect really want that gumming up what they're trying to do? And then how do I manage that? The more we add, the more we have to manage. The more we have the larger the model gets. So
yeah, it's an interesting point because the formwork is not consumed by the building. It's not left behind. It's a necessary means to construct the building, and sometimes it's especially through the design phase, it's an afterthought. Maybe rightfully so. I don't know, but where the selling point on including formwork into the BIM modeling is the fact that formwork has such an influence on the schedule of the construction of the building. And schedule's critical, to a developer or owner. They want occupants in whatever it is they're building as soon as they can. And if something that's that important to the schedule, of the construction schedule, maybe you should include them in the BIM modeling or the BIM approach.
Well, scaffolding, shoring. These are things you get them on site and you don't really want to move them around a lot of times.
Yeah.
And it's like one of the golden rules of when you're building something is wherever you put it, that's probably where you're going to need to get, right? The next thing.
Yeah.
That's going to be in your way. The next place you got to, so you need to think through 5 steps down the road.
Which BIM enables you to do.
Which BIM enables, yeah, exactly.
And where it becomes difficult is where you do have all of these separated places where the information is housed,
Yeah.
right? It's like, how can I play chess here if you're forcing me to play checkers? It's like the systems we're not quite there yet. And I'm excited to see where it goes and how things are going to get more integrated.
Yeah.
To see where the architect can interact with the structural steel model or, with formwork or whatever in the model and just see how things are playing out. Have the engineers work with the architect and seeing all that stuff in one spot. We're still at a place right now, the modeling softwares are not in a place where we can put everything in the same model. But I think we have the compute horsepower
Yep.
to do it. Like, we do have that.
Yes.
We're there. It's just we don't have the software and systems in place to be able to actually do the thing that we want to do. That's been a big challenge.
Yeah,
for the
there's a
entire industry.
handful of software companies out there that are working on this void.
Yeah.
They're working to write code, software, and language that takes X and Y and marries them together, so that we have something that's usable and buildable.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd test it. I mean, like just the math problem that you're trying to solve. Yeah.
Not
You're
sponsored.
welcome, Clifton. You're welcome.
Clifton, send us sponsorship money. No, I'm just kidding.
I think the best coffee cup or almost Yeti cup that he's ever given away.
Almost, yeah.
It's a Fetty.
Yes. I mean, he's solving for like parking spaces.
Owner challenges, really. Yeah.
Well, he starts solving for certain use cases. They're the things that architects don't really want to sit and figure out how to do a parking space. But that's like, all right, I have a rectangle on a plane and I have to figure out how many of those rectangles can fit in a box. And I got to figure out if the box changes to not a box, how many of the rectangles can fit now. Yes. And then I've got respect of certain spaces. And so now all of a sudden you start to build the rules that govern AI. And that's where you start to get generative in your design. And formwork is going to be governed by similar rules, and that you have faces of concrete that are some shape, and then you have pieces of form that are some shape, and you can teach those rules to AI, and then, you start going for the 80% play, where I'll never have to lay out another piece of standard formwork again because all those rectangles are going to auto-populate, right?
And back to the labor shortage aspect that you were talking about, it's like that. The people that know how to do that really well, their time is pretty precious. And so speeding them up on just like the stuff that the computer can do, like just doing basic counts and measuring it out, spacing things and all of that stuff. Like, dude, yeah, you're able to reallocate the people with a lot of knowledge to the things that only they can solve.
Yeah, that's exactly right. AI, there's of course, a fear out there that AI is going to sort of take over. It's going to eliminate jobs. It's going to do this. What AI is going to do is it's going to evolve the jobs, and it's going to make us better at doing what we do.
Yeah.
We're already using automation, which I guess is a single step of AI, to do mundane tasks, things like this, the click of a button or something like that. So that's not eliminating the job. It's making us better, faster, more productive at our job. And our jobs will evolve as AI evolves.
Yeah.
For sure.
The job titles are going to change so much.
Yeah.
As a result of this. I mean, I think now there are like AI specialists out there that are, their whole job is to learn how to prompt ChatGPT better and get more out of it, and it's crazy. Like
that's exactly right. Because the AI actually teaches itself. Yeah. The AI is it's self-taught. It reads everything that it can find anywhere. Yeah. And then the human task is then figuring out how to get what you want out of what it knows. Right. Which is, how do you prompt it?
Yeah.
You rephrase a question just a little bit and you're going to get a much different answer.
Yeah. I was playing with DALL-E, probably 2 years ago or something like that. Like when it was real new. Yeah. And that was the first thing I was finding is like I would prompt it like, hey, create this image. Cause I love imagery, right? That's my kind of my deal. So I'm like, hey, do this, do that, do this. And it was just like crazy how you would just manipulate one word. Yep. And how different the results would get like crazy. But it's going to require a lot of knowledge and a lot of intuition to be able to manipulate and get the outputs from AI that you want. But I think that's ultimately how we're going to design and engineer things down the road. Like, why would we not? It's there. Let's use it. Like, let's streamline this whole process and make it easier for everybody.
That's right.
You know, maybe BIM meetings can go away. That'd be amazing. I would love that. BIM coordination meetings, let's kill them. Let's let AI take over.
Run the meeting.
Put the models together. What works, what doesn't. All right, sounds good. Let's go. And like, come on. Let's get there.
I would like to not sit in 2-hour BIM meetings anymore. That'd be good.
You and the other 10 people that are there too. You know?
Dude, 10 could be low.
10 could be low.
That is the whole dog pile spaghetti method of BIM, where we're doing BIM coordination, and it's, 2-hour meeting a week for, 12 weeks or something silly on a big project, and you got 20 stakeholders sitting in there.
Got to sift through the layers and layers of bid models to find out where we have interferences and where we don't.
That's tough, man.
Yeah.
We can do better than that.
It's all mechanical stuff too, I feel like. Every time. It's
Mechanical and plumbing. It's gonna be in the way.
Being the steel guy in the
You're just
room
like,
is like,
move it. I don't have to. I just put it where you told me to put it.
Steel's there. You're probably working around it.
Yeah.
My stuff's bigger. All right. Figure it out. I think that's where we have to go as an industry, though, is like, come on, like that. We would save ourselves so much time if we could just put these models together and not do the dogpile methodology, which we're having to do now. But I feel like the softwares are amazing that we have coming out in the industry. Amazing. Like, they can do incredible things, but they're still lacking some of that finesse that we're requiring as an industry. Like, we still have to be able to, we got to move beyond where we're at right now. And maybe it'll happen quicker than I'm thinking, but I don't know. I'm a little bit of a pessimist on
What
this.
if the software companies are all looking at us the same way that the general contractors and subtrades are looking at the architect? Like, you keep asking us to do all this stuff, and it's too hard. but we're asking for it, and then they end up figuring it out eventually, and we're like,
cool.
Well, I'll ask for more. I'm just going to keep coming back to the well.
Yeah.
So I guess that's how the development is gonna work.
Well, we got to press into them, right? Like, we got to keep being loud about this sort of thing, because eventually somebody's going to go, oh, that's what you need, and give it to us, and that's going to truly actually be a game changer. That's right. I'm going to put $1 in the jar. I'm sorry. I said game changer.
Gosh, man, you had to do it.
Is that a no-no?
Yeah, it's a no-no around here. Yeah, don't say
thing.
game changer around here. We got a jar somewhere around here.
Noted.
Is it megaphone time?
I think it might be megaphone time.
I don't even know if I've warned you about the megaphone.
I have not been warned about the megaphone.
Okay, we can see how quick you are on your feet, man.
I can't wait to see.
Let's go.
See what happens here.
Oh,
we got this make-believe megaphone.
Okay.
And so, yeah, if you could use a megaphone and speak to the whole construction industry, so something that you would want them to know, just be very important to you, what would you tell them? Like, what would you use it to say?
So I think the construction industry really needs to come together and quit working in silos. You have the silo of the architect, the silo of the structural engineer, the silo of the general contractor, and then all of the subs. Everybody has the best intentions, but everybody's focused on what they're doing. The minute we can get rid of these silos and create true collaboration through the technologies that are available to us, I think the construction industry will evolve and progress to a place we can't even imagine yet. Because I think the technology's there. There's a lot of innovation that's out there, and I think we're underutilizing it. And once we get to a point where we actually figure out how to utilize the stuff that's available, it's going to be fantastic. But to do that, we got to get out of our silos.
Pass the test, man. That's pretty light on your feet there.
Yeah, well done. Well done. Yeah, let's go.
Good stuff, man.
Thanks for coming down, man. Appreciate it.
Great. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me. This was fun. It was a good time.